All right, hello and welcome guys to yet another YouTube video here on my channel. What I wanted to do right now is give you a little bit of an insight of how you start an ads manager account. I think a lot of our clients that we bring on board and we onboard through our whole entire process, a majority of the time is spent is actually trying to clean their ad accounts up. There's so many different ad sets, there's so many different audiences, there's double audiences, there's pixels that aren't firing the right way, there hasn't been events set up the right way. So I'm not going to dive into how to set each and everything up because there'll be different videos on my channel about how to do that. What I want you to do in this video is focus on what I'm telling you and what are the most important things to get right before you run any ads. And then go onto my YouTube channel and kind of find those videos associated with, pixels, custom events, custom conversions, what to do, in the world of iOS 14.5 and beyond, and how to make sure that just because we can't track things at the moment doesn't mean we can't run ads. So when you're looking at this is exactly how your account will be when you start off on Ads Manager. When you've gone past just boosting posts and when you've done different things before, you would probably never gone into here. So it looks a little bit overwhelming, but I want you to understand exactly the most important things that you need to be looking at right off the gate or right out of the gate. So on here at the moment, at the top of here, you've got campaign name, bid strategy, budget, attribution settings, results, reach, impressions, cost per result, amount spent, and when it ends. We call this kind of the mission control because at a glance, you can then see exactly from anywhere what and how your ad campaign is going to go. And I'm going to run through how to actually set up a campaign from the ground up and make sure you know exactly what each level is and how to understand that from the get-go. Cool. Okay, so everything looks a little bit intimidating. You're always going to have things like here, additional information required. Don't worry too much about those. On here is the main menu is what I call it, right? The biggest thing that you want to go into is go into brand settings, business settings, sorry, not brand settings, and then drop down to brand safety and then jump into domains. The biggest thing in 2021, I don't know when you'll be watching this video, is that you need to make sure your domain is verified. So in order to do that, it's pretty simple, but a lot of people, when we start working with them, haven't even got a domain verified, which means Facebook will look at that and say, well, you're running ads, but you're not really verified in terms of your domain and all this kind of stuff as well. It's happening on more and more platforms, so it's really, really important to get that done straight away. Obviously, you can see here, mptagencies.com and MPT Media, my media agency, is running my agency in general, so that's all verified. But the easy thing to do, all you have to do is click here, grab your domain, and obviously this isn't going to work, but you would type it in here. And then what would happen is it would go and search. It's not going to be able to add it, but obviously it's going to add the same one. But obviously you would go through the steps that do that. So the biggest important thing you do straight off out of the gate and straight off the bat is to go down to brand safety and then make sure your domain is verified. You never want to go back. You always want to go forward in the steps of Facebook, right? Then what you want to do is that if, for example, if you are working with an agency or you've got more team members, what you want to make sure you go up to is partners. Now, I'm going to blank out all of this on the left-hand side. We blanked out because although this is our backup account, we've still got a majority of clients on the secondary account that aren't on the original one as well. So, for example, what's going to happen is that you would go add the ad button up here under partners, and you would say either give partner access to your assets or ask partner to share their assets. So for example, you might be working in an organization where you've got maybe 2 or 3 different ad accounts, and in that case, you might be sharing assets across the board. Now, you might just be starting off, or you might be forgetting because you might not have set an ad account up in the past. It really doesn't matter where you are, but it's just making sure that you make the differentiation between asking or giving permission. And remember, when you're looking at a partner, you've got to remember that this is the bread and butter of your business. So you've got to make sure that these people know what they're doing. so they're not just going to cause detriment within your ad account. So you're either going to give them give your partner access to your assets, which in case you would have a partner ID, which the ID is pretty easy to find. You just have to go into, if I go back to domains, easy to find, my ad ID is here. So if anyone wanted to add me for like audits, or anyone wanted to add me in terms of my clients coming on board, and that's part of the onboarding process, and also the audit process, for example, they have to add us and we go into their ad accounts to do audits. And if you are looking for an audit, we do 30 to 45 minute audits for free, absolutely no obligations to do anything else. All you have to do is just click the links down in the links below and you can book a time, and then we'll onboard you in that scenario. It's free of charge, no big deal. We just do a lot of this stuff with a lot of people just to make sure that they're situated and they're ready to go. So that's what like an ad ID is. And then what you want to do is you want to make sure, again, there's going to be blurred out on the left-hand side, that you've added your business page, which a lot of times, truth be told, honestly, a lot of the time you will find a lot of people haven't actually added their page, which will come into effect when, for example, we want to start running some ads, right? So again, you can either add a page, request to add access to add a page, or you can create a brand new page from the get-go. Now, what I would recommend doing, in my previous experience, I've been in the industry for over 5 years. I've been running ads for, the whole entire time since I've started any of my businesses, is always create 2 or 3 different accounts. Not being any other than just for the fact if one goes down, the whole ship doesn't go down. Because what you would do is you would just act like all of the other accounts are partners, and you would just add them across the field. It's also interesting that we're finding when we're testing that if we run ads to the same kind of platform, like a website or a funnel, and we create a business page for like MPT agencies, you would create a page just for myself, Matt Mackay, and then you might do a secondary account like MPT Media, for example. And all 3 of those pages are running adverts for the same, let's say, webinar or product or service or that source. As long as they line up and they kind of make sense to each other, then you'd be all good to do that. But it's just an interesting thing that we're finding, because obviously if ads, Facebook bans one of your accounts, it's really frustrating because that data can't be shared across other platforms. So it's important to have those backups in place. Cool. So once you've got that, again, another thing that you can do is just make sure, again, this is going to be blurred out, that you've added your Instagram account. So that makes sure that's all done as well. And the other thing that a lot of people don't actually do when they've started off is actually make sure that their pixel's set up. So you can actually see, obviously all of this is blurred out, but to make things understanding is that you've actually got to add a pixel or create a pixel, because what the pixel is, and I'll make a video, and if not, I've already made one, explaining what a pixel is and how it's actually valuable for you. You can't actually track anything if this pixel doesn't exist. And I honestly, you think I'll be lying, but I'm not. There's so many people that we onboard that just don't even have pixels set up and they've been running ads, which is, honestly, it hurts me to the deepest core when people are spending money and they can't track things because there's no pixel. So you can run video ads, you can run traffic ads, you can run conversion ads, you can run lead form ads. All of this thing's tracked by what we call the Facebook pixel. Cool. So just to cover or recap exactly what we've done so far, we've made sure that, first of all, your domain's verified, your partners, if you've got any partners that you need to add in, most importantly, your page and your Instagram account's done, and also that our pixel's set up. Remember, I'm overviewing everything in this video. It's bigger, it's an overview of exactly how to start an ads manager account. If you want more in depth in any of those things, we'll make more videos, and if we haven't, just comment down below, and we're more than happy to set that up as well. The biggest thing, if I move myself over into the little scenario here, is making sure that we have your media and stuff set up, which is, I think, the most important thing when it comes to starting to think about how we can, for example, create Facebook ads. I think a lot of the time that distracts users is when they start making ads and they're uploading to the actual ad set. Well, first of all, it's going to take a hell of a long time for that to actually happen. And second of all, you can actually bypass that by actually adding them into the media library before you do any ads. Reason being is that if you've got things that are like a 4K videos, you've got even like 1080p, 1440 videos, anything that's very heavy, in terms of editing and also gigabyte size, you want to make sure that everything's pristine and neat, because when I run an ad, like I'm going to do at the end of this video, that you want to make sure that everything's already there available for you. So the most important thing is that when you're running your ads, you've set up everything before you push go. I think, like I said before in the start of this video, it's much easier to go forward than it is to go back. So making sure that you've done this means that we can actually make sure that there's no lag time when we're doing these things. And when we're working with clients are paying thousands of dollars in terms of retainers. We can't be messing around doing things like uploading media and stuff like that when ad campaigns need to be going out. So you can create folders, and obviously you can do it from a business media or just ad account media. And I would suggest separating them into like specific niches and demographics, and also video versus stills and GIFs and dimensions exactly, so you exactly know where you're going for specific content. Because, for example, you wouldn't run an ad account, an ad that only did one type of video, for example. We know that video is king, but Instagram have different dimensions, Facebook have different dimensions, Instagram stories, Instagram reels, Facebook stories, all of those places have different dimensions for their videos. So you would make folders based on those dimensions. So when you're running ad accounts, it's much easier to get your head around those things, and it's very easy to set up, right? And I'll explain that, and it'll make sense when I set up the ad campaign for you in this video, of how kind of almost OCD I am when I set these things up. Because again, we work with brands that spend thousands of dollars on ads, and we get paid thousands of dollars to do ads all the time as well. So it's important that we set these things up so that if the user or the client comes on and looks at their ad manager, they can understand exactly what we're doing, right? So that's probably the last thing that you really need to focus on when you're setting your ad account up, other than obviously setting up your billing. I won't go into billing because it'll show my card details, but you would just click on billing and then add your account as well. Just an FYI, when you're starting off in a brand new ad account, Facebook will more likely charge you more often. So for example, you might set a budget for $200 flat rate, like it might just be a $200 ad campaign. But what Facebook will do is it'll charge you more often, because what needs to understand is that Facebook is like a new person you've just met. You don't know them well, you don't really trust them that well, but you're getting to know them. So as Facebook gets to know you, the most important thing that you can do is make sure that you've got those funds available, because the more times your account fails, the more likely your account's going to be deactivated, because you're just not someone Facebook wants to deal with. And another tip, if you have a credit card, if you have a card that has a higher limit, just put that on and then just transfer the money over. Facebook tends to like credit cards more than debit cards as well. So that might help you in that scenario, it might not. But it's just another thing that we can do. There's one more thing also before I forget to mention, is it's kind of obvious if you're setting up this anyway, but I'll just cover it now, is that we want to set up custom audiences before we run any ad account. So obviously, I haven't set up any because this is just a brand new account, but hypothetically, if I was to create any campaigns for clients, obviously a client's probably going to have a client list. They're going to have website traffic maybe in the past if they've got a pixel. They're going to have user data. They're going to have heaps of stuff that I can use to create audiences for those clients. And you can either create a custom audience and then go into what we call a lookalike audience. Now, if you don't know the difference between those two, I will have a video floating around somewhere. The links are probably going to be below, or I've suggested it on this actual YouTube video. But the difference between a custom audience and a lookalike audience is pretty simple. A custom audience is just a list of names or a list of data that either your website has generated or your client list has generated. And then the lookalike audience is cloning that data, and Facebook is then going to go and find those specific people across the internet that are similar, being a percentage, 1 to 10, 1 being the closest you can possibly get, or 10 being the furthest away, to the likelihood of them matching up to the people you already have data on. Meaning, for example, if someone was to use my data and they find a lookalike audience, they're going to find people that like iPhones, like Apple, like Facebook, all of these tendencies, but also they'll match what I do on social media. How long I stay on social media for, how I engage with social media, what I do with ads, most importantly, and all of that data, right? So it's important to make sure you've got those loaded if you have. Another thing, if you've got any current videos or anything on your connected Facebook account, you can actually populate audiences based on a video. I've probably made a video already about this. If I haven't, it's coming very soon. To understand how Facebook's tendency going now, because of all the tracking restrictions, video is going to be much more important than it ever has before. For example, I could release a 10-minute video, and if I can find everyone that's, let's say, watched 50% of that, I can then use that to remarket my products in the future. Much easier than I've ever been able to do it before. So you can do that through organic video that you've had on your page for a while. Just go back and you can easily go through to audiences. You can create an audience, and all you have to do is click on the custom audience, go down to video. Obviously, it's not going to show me now. What you would do is you'd click, you'd probably either want 25 or 50%. Like, you can combine them if you want to, but ideally you would not. I don't know if I've actually got any. Let's say if I've got any my actual business pages. Right, so yeah, there's one here, how to get your first client. So for example, if I did this one, and I wanted to do that, I would have just done, I'm just going to say it's test. But what it's going to do is, out of those, I think it was said 1,100 views, what that video is going to have, it's going to go find everyone that's watched 25% or more of that. Obviously, it's not going to be 1,100, but it's going to populate something very quickly. And because I've connected that the page to my account already, I can actually, even though I've posted that video ages ago, I can go back and populate those audiences. So that's a very easy thing that you can do based on your organic, if you've got a good organic following, right? Okay, so now we want to run an ad campaign. How do we do that? Pretty simple. It's not as hard as what it makes it out to be. But the biggest thing that you want to do is make sure that you follow these steps as closely as you can. So what you want to do is you want to kind of run a campaign based on the objective that you want to get from. Now, I would avoid traffic like the plague. I would avoid reach and brand awareness like the plague, because guaranteed, if you're watching this YouTube video, you don't have enough ad spend to spend on brand awareness, reach, or even traffic, because those ones are just going to get your message out there quickly. What I would suggest doing right now, based on knowing how much most people would have to spend, is if you can afford it, run conversion ads. But if you can't, and you don't, let's say, have any really good audiences from the get-go, run a video ad that's really high engaging, that's really, really good, that's a little bit longer than, let's say, 3 or 4 minutes, and then gather all those audiences. Now, I just showed you how to create an audience. You do the exact same thing, but what you would do is you would post the you would approve, like get the ad approved and start running it, and then you would populate the audiences once that ad set's run, just like I've posted that video ages ago, and now I can do the audiences, right? So the most important thing is understanding this from the get-go. If you expect, let's say, leads from, let's say, app installs, but you're not running an app, it's a pretty bad objective. And you've got to be kind of understanding that Facebook is AI, it's artificial intelligence, right? So it's only going to go off what the information that you give it. So for example, pretty easy, what I'm going to do is I'm going to run a video view ad, right? Because that's kind of the easiest thing that you could run from the get-go. It's pretty simple. And I've literally already got a video for you to do. So you can see here that you've got 3 different kind of levels of an ad, right? You've got I would almost say the campaign level, right? So it's pretty easy. It just says campaign. But instead of having a new video views campaign, it's kind of confusing. What I like to do is allow myself from a glance, because if we go back here, remember how I said this is going to be your kind of mission control from a glance, from everywhere from your new campaigns to exactly how much you're spending to the results you're getting to the impressions, cost per result, and all of this stuff. You can see it from a glance. You don't have to worry about it. If you want to see, for example, the ad set level or the ad level, remember those 2 words very kind of embedded in your brain. You just click this and then you can go here and you would see this from a glance. So instead of going edit and then going into it, similar to like how we're setting it up here, it's a little bit confusing as you get started. So just kind of tick the box, move it over, and then start from there. So if we were to go into this level, all we're going to do, it always comes back to here. So we want to name them from the get-go. We want to name them the most efficient thing possible. So for example, we're talking to cold people, right? So in capitals, everything should be in capitals. It tends to just work a little bit easier. What we would do is we would write cold, because then from a glance, we can see that this is a cold traffic ad, right? Regardless of whatever objective you're picking, it doesn't matter. It's still going to be cold because you're not talking to people that have integrated within your content so far. So now that we've made it cold, right? Now we need to understand, okay, so our objective, for example, what's the name of the video? So I would go how to get leads video, right? All right, so now that we've done how to get leads and we've made the title effectively of the video, what we need to do is say who's engaging with that, who's our target audience. So normally, let's say, for example, if you're looking at like a lookalike audience, all you do is write that, because that's a lookalike audience. If you're not, you would type the dynamic. So maybe, for example, we could do, I would do biz owners. Right? Because from a glance, I can now see that I'm talking to cold traffic. It's the how to get leads video. And then my demographic is business owners, right? And even if you wanted to get a little bit more, you could even put your budget and say, let's say $25 per day. I can then see from the campaign name exactly what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. So if we went out of here and I just went close, I can now see from a campaign level it's a cold audience, how to get leads video, business owners, and I'm spending $25 per day. And you can see from a glance exactly what it's doing. So you can see here, for example, once I started running it, I can see exactly where I want to get it from, right? I can see exactly from a glance. I don't have to click into any of the ads. I don't have to get any confused. I don't have to go down that rabbit hole of what people say ads managers like. And I can simply but efficiently run my ad campaign very easily. So now that we've done the campaign level, is what I call it, we want to go to the ad set level. So we've got campaign level, ad set level, and ad level. All you have to remember is you've got 3 levels. So what this means is that, okay, now, for example, we're going to spend $20 a day. You can spend whatever you can. And it gives you an understanding of exactly what you could think of. So, for example, for a good audience size, you need about 1,000 of something. So 1,000 people watching 25% or more, 1,000 views on a website, anything over about 1,000 to create a good retargeting campaign, and about 50 optimizations of a conversion to have a good campaign from that side of things as well. So just to give you an understanding of why that number is important. So again, what we want to do is come down here and we want to say, okay, well, who are we targeting? For example, here what we're doing is we're targeting New Zealand, age groups, gender, demographics. So demographics is pretty simple. It comes up with suggestions, but you could type in, let's say, pretty simple. You could go money, and money will come up, 586, right? Obviously that's pretty silly to write in money, but you would come in and say, let's say, you would say personal trainer maybe as well, because you might target personal trainers. Obviously they're only, and the biggest thing is this says interests, for example. It's not what they've added to their description on their personal page or whatever. So what you would do is, to start off with, it's always an easy one. You would go small business owner, and they've said people who have listed their employer as a small business owner on their Facebook profile. So that's the difference. If they're interest, that means that could be anyone. That's not who you really want to target. Although they might be interested, you're going to get people that, like, for example, go to the gym, but are interested in, let's say, money, but they're not interested in running their own business, right? Because they're interested in money, but their profession isn't anything to do with money, right? Or the same thing with small business owners. So we want to make sure that says employer. So for example, we want to do small business owners. Let's say we know that our demographic is probably definitely not going to be 18. It might be, let's say, 22. It's probably not going to be 65. So let's say it might go up to 55, for example. It's going to, obviously, it's too narrow at the moment. But we can with one tip that I'm going to give you within this video, it's going to help you. It's probably not going to help you on the small business owners, and that's why I'm saying you want to kind of give something, let's say, we want something a little bit bigger. So something like Grant Cardone, so anyone that's interested in him is probably going to be interested in similar stuff like you. It's going to give us about close to 1,000. Now, again, if you wait to the end of this video, I'm going to give you a couple of tips that are going to allow you to excel in a cold audience setting. I think so many people are interested in making videos on how to optimize your warm and hot and all this other stuff. I know there's so many people that start ads every single day and are probably watching this video and are like, okay, well, yeah, I don't really want to get to that level, or I'm going to be a while until I get to that level. What's some tips you can give me? And I'll give you them. You just have to wait to the end of this video. So again, location is going to be super important. Like the location can mean a lot of different things. So doing your due diligence before you do your ads is super important as well. Finding out what countries and what places that are your demographic or your avatars surrounding themselves in, and what are they doing. So again, if we'll notice all of the stuff that we were doing through here, the most important thing that we want to make sure we do is be as specific as possible, because you can see there's heaps of stuff here, right? It'll be confusing if we were not going to be specific. So what we want to do is, again, we want to make sure it's cold. We want to put capitals on. We want to say, I'm just going to go GC because that's Grant Cardone. I'm going to then also say the age group, so 22 to 55. I'm going to go, it's NZ. Any other data that we can go, NZ's covered, that's cool. I don't need to put my ad budget, but the last thing we want to put is is it dynamic creative? So for example, if you're spending anything over $20 per day, it's much easier to get Facebook to do the heavy lifting than it is for you to do it, especially if you're starting off. So something like dynamic creative would be a perfect opportunity for you to just experiment with it. You give Facebook as many options as possible, creatives, headlines, post text, images, videos, and they will find the best formulas for your audience. So that's also interested. So if we did put dynamic creative on, we'll just go dynamic creative. If we didn't, we'll just leave it there, right? Then on to the next one. So again, we said cold, how to get leads, and we can see that from a glance. We've done it again, cold, Grant Cardone, 25 to 55 years old, and it's a New Zealand audience. Remember, if you stay to the end of this video, I'm going to make sure I can give you 2 or 3 tips that are going to excel your Facebook strategies going forward. So please, 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 if you've carried on this far, continue to keep watching. We're nearly there. But I'm going to really definitely show you some really cool tips. Again, we're now at the ad level, which is the fun part. If you put dynamic creative on, what's going to happen is that your setup is going to be a little bit different because you're going to be able to add more of this. At the moment, I didn't put dynamic creative on, but again, I can just show you as an example. It's just going to come up with a warning or an example, and again, you can add as many as you want. But it's going to come, like for example, if I wrote test, I can add more options, right? So I can add another one. And again, if I did test again, I can add another one, right? So although this Facebook page is blurred out because for privacy reasons, again, you want to make sure this is the ad name is as specific as possible. So for example, dynamic creative, you would just put dynamic creative there to make sure you know it's dynamic creative. You would then say, for example, normally, if you didn't have dynamic creative on, you would just say this might be video 1, right? Or if you go image 1, you can just go duplicate, and it will duplicate the same set. So for example, once you've done your headline, your description, your URL, all that stuff on the first one, and then go copy, you would then be able to duplicate the whole entire process, because the biggest thing about Facebook is you don't want to change every aspect. So you look at the image, you look at the headline, you look at the post text, you look at the call to action. All of those things influence whether a person signs up or takes action on your ad or not. So if you changed all of them, you wouldn't know what's working. So I just wanted to show you quickly how to duplicate. But if we went back to that first ad, what we're going to write into here is we're going to say also, for example, image 1 might be headline, might be the one that you're changing, for example. So then everyone would be the headline, so that you would understand that if you're running more campaigns, or if you duplicated this one and changed, let's say, the headline to post text, you would have post text here. So you would understand that this is the post text change, this is the headline change, and so forth. Again, you would aim to only change one aspect. So what I would suggest doing from a baseline level is just keep it super simple. So instead of if you put image 1 and then went duplicate, I would let's say duplicate that. Like I said, I want about 4 to 6 ad sets or ads, sorry. So then what I would do is, to make it super simple, I would go image 2, because the only thing that I tend to do at the start of anything is change the image or the video. I never change the text, headlines, or descriptions until I know they convert, and then I start changing those things later on. So I would say image 1, image 2, image 3, image 4, image 5, image 6, and image 7. Again, same for video. So I would do 50-50 if I was running 6. I wouldn't just do 6 of one and 6 of the other. I wouldn't be running 12 creatives. That's extraordinarily large, and you wouldn't know which ones were changing. So, for example, by the way, it's always going to come up setup error because this is obviously just a dummy account. But if we went back to this level, and if I just close this, for example, now we can start seeing it's kind of building, right? We can start seeing that everything's named, and again, always tick and move across. You've got cold, Grant Cardone, 25 to 55 years old, New Zealand audience. And then if I went across to here, I could go image 1, image 2, image 3, blah, blah, blah. Because the biggest thing is when we get to the ad level, there's a lot more kind of information that we can see from a glance. So obviously you're going to run so many different campaigns. And when we come up to one of the tips I'm going to give you at the end of this video, you'll see how to optimize the ad set levels as well. So the other thing on here before we go into the things that I want to give you for staying to the end of this video, and I appreciate everyone that stayed here for as long as you have, is that the biggest thing you want to understand is when you're running a video impression, video views, for example, we want to see how much of the audience is watching your video, and you can do that pretty simply. So I tend to, when I'm starting to understand the video, I kind of want to see everything. So what I would do is I would run 25, 50, 75, 95, and 100. Remember when we created that audience, we were looking for 25%. So we're looking at this specifically across all of those. Although they say image, you would obviously change those to videos. But also when you're running dynamic creative, Facebook tends to create videos for you based on the images that you're using. So you can get away with some of those. But again, simple, but really, really effective. From a glance, you'll be able to see all this information if I was running this ad set. Again, you can see here ad set name, and then obviously you got your campaign name here as well. Cool. All right. So hopefully that whole entire video, guys, made you understand Facebook and Facebook Ads Manager a little bit easier. But of course, because I'm really, really thankful and grateful for you guys even watching this video, let alone staying to the end of this video, what I want to do is show you two really, really cool features at the ad set level that you can really optimize to utilize Facebook's AI. The first one is going to be when you're in detailed targeting. The biggest thing that a lot of Facebook's AI has done since its inception was the fact that it's got more and more and more and more data. So even though I'm looking for Grant Cardone or anyone interested in Grant Cardone, you can actually tick this detailed targeting expansion, meaning that the detailed targeting expansions lets you show your ads to more people, which may help you reach your optimization goal. Reach people beyond your targeting selections when it's likely to improve your performance. So when you tick this box, you might see a change in this. You might, see already. So if I untick this, you might see a change in, the reach, right? And you're even seeing a difference in through plays. But when you tick this box, don't worry about maybe people that aren't interested in Grant Cardone. What Facebook will do is show and expand your ads when it's likely to improve its performance. So the most important part of that is that Facebook's going to determine that for you. You don't have to determine that. And I think that's a massive bridge that Facebook's allowed new users to utilize because of the fact that now you can just tick a box, right? So that's awesome. That's tip number one. The second is that what you want to do is you could also look for narrow audience, right? So you can go engage shoppers. So If you think, for example, based on your ad budget, that the Grant Cardone is 2.5 million, which is a reasonable size. But if you wanted to get that a little bit lower, and because you might be not even able to spend $20 a day, or you might want to spend maybe 10 or 15 or 5, whatever you're starting off with is good. I would really utilize what you can afford and then scale up. I wouldn't just put it in and think you're going to get results, because it will take you some time. The most important thing you can do is give Facebook as much data as possible. So what I would suggest doing, if you are looking at that scenario where you've got 2.5 million people and you've got a relatively small daily budget, I would go into the interests and I would go narrow audience, and I would also look for something called engaged shoppers. Now, what are engaged shoppers? The description says people who have clicked on a call to action button, shop now in the past week. Now, it's not just the shop now. It could be download, it could be learn more, it could be anything that little button is saying they've clicked on it in the last week. So if you watch these on the right-hand side under estimated daily results, if you look at that change, it will potentially change. It has, right? So what it's done is it's narrowed your audience to make it a little bit smaller. So out of that 2.5 million people, we've now narrowed it to 720,000 people, which if you're looking at $20 a day is much more affordable, right? You've gone from 2.5 to 720. And we know that engaged shoppers are more likely to take action even at a cold level, not even a warm or a hot level. Because these people, although they might be cold to you, they're not cold to doing that specific action. So there are your 2 tips for staying to the end of this video, guys. I really, really hope that helped you. I really, really hope that encouraged you to have a little bit more of an understanding of Facebook and how utilizing it is not that hard. But of course, if you've got any questions, comment them down below. And I'll see you guys very, very soon in the next video.